Welcome to the Generous Benefits Podcast, where we talk about building benefits that actually help people and still make business sense. I'm your host, Amanda Brummitt. Today we're talking state continuation coverage, commonly called mini COBRA. Our guest is benefits strategist, Generous Benefits founder, and my favorite human, Bret Brummitt. Bret has spent more than 2 decades helping employers navigate plan design, compliance, and the messy middle where benefits meet real life. We're going to talk about who state continuation coverage applies to, how it works, where employers get tripped up, and what you can do today to protect both your organization and the employees you support. Let's jump in. Hi, Bret. Thanks for being here today.
You're welcome.
Most of our guests probably know you, but just in case anybody is new to the show, who are you? What's your background? Why should they care what you have to say?
Been doing insurance for way too long now, since I was early on, right out of college. And so 30-something years now of insurance knowledge, making multiple screw-ups, learning from those, getting better, learning from others, running an agency, running my own agency now, coaching other agents through Q4 Intelligence, just kind of one of those people that is a vast sponge of insurance knowledge and watching industry trends and watching things go right and getting to witness lots of things go wrong. So that's why, because I see both sides of the coin.
Yeah. Okay. So let's start at the beginning today. What is state continuation coverage, or mini COBRA, in quotes for people that can't see my face?
Yep. So mini COBRA, as the vernacular has really become, is continuation of someone's employer group health benefits, generally when they leave the company, either voluntarily or involuntarily for reasons other than gross negligence. And it is the ability to keep those benefits for a certain set duration of time. Now, that duration of time depends on both the state you live in, because not all states, but almost all states have some kind of state continuation or mini COBRA rules. And the duration and the qualifications vary a little bit state by state. So being in Texas most of my life, I'm super familiar with the Texas rules, which is now the availability of up to 9 months for regular employee terminations. There's some caveats that go longer on things like spousal death and the morbid stuff. But your regular run-of-the-mill Texas state continuation is if someone's been on an employer group plan for 3 months, their coverage is terminated through employment termination, they can keep that plan for up to 9 months, assuming that the employer coverage was a fully insured group plan. So this does not apply to the rash of small self-funded groups like level-funded plans. Those are all ERISA federal-based plans, not run and regulated by the state. So those are not subject to Texas state continuation or any state continuation on those plans. And then Texas is also a little unique. When we think of COBRA, we think of dental and vision coverage being COBRable as well. And so Texas state continuation technically doesn't cover dental and vision plans either. So we're specifically talking about fully insured medical plans for an employer who fits the size category. So that's the other part we didn't talk about. We talked about size. Mm-hmm. The rule is an employer who had 20 or more employees on the prior calendar year and is COBRA. So non-COBRA are those that had 19 or less employees. And that is a mathematical account of both full and part-time employees in the company, where the part-time employee is not a whole employee. It's a percentage of the time they work. So simplicity, if someone works 20 hours and your definition is full-time, a part-time employee working 20 hours is half an employee when you try to make that count of, could you get to, over or under 20? So under 19 employees.
And is it similar to federal COBRA, which we're going to get to the differences in a second, but is it similar to federal COBRA in that then the employee pays the full amount, the employer keeps them on their exact same plan?
It is similar to that because it is a continuation of coverage. So you are on the exact same plan. And this also opens up all the caveats of, well, what happens when your employer drops coverage or goes out of business?
Yeah.
And then those are so sad, too bad there's no coverage to continue on. So you don't have an option in that situation. So those are very similar in the rules around COBRA and mini COBRA.
Okay. And then you also mentioned something at the very beginning about gross misconduct or something like that.
Yep.
that would prevent you from being eligible?
Yeah, you steal from your employer, you're not eligible for COBRA. Same rules apply for state continuation. So more or less, that's generally when someone gets, a gross misconduct termination.
Okay. But if you're just terminated for
Yeah.
just regular termination, you can't make it to work on time, you're still eligible.
You're still eligible. That's not going to be one of those gross misconduct situations. As just saying, lots of employers don't know to even offer it in that size, though. They think they are not eligible for COBRA, so they don't do anything.
Yeah.
And on the flip side, I mentioned it's designed really on the fully insured plans. So sometimes employers will offer coverage on the level funded plans where the plan is not required to do so. And if the employer does it, it's generally to their own detriment, either by keeping somebody on the plan that's sicker and driving those prices up because those are experience rated plans, or they keep somebody on through COBRA in one of those plans, and the stop loss vendor says, well, you shouldn't have. And so all of their high claims over our stop loss level are your fault, not ours. So you pay those.
Oh.
So there's a couple of gotchas on both sides for those that don't offer when they should. And then sometimes those that do offer when they shouldn't.
Wow. And what is the gotcha? Is it a fine?
Yeah, the gotcha for not doing it is a fine. And then the gotcha for doing it generally is you pay more in premiums, or you end up, because you offered it, paying someone's full medical bills.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's the try to do what you have to do and try not to do more than you should do.
Okay. Makes sense. And then tell us how it is different from federal COBRA and how employers know which one they should be following.
Yeah. So how is it different? The first is the eligibility. Should you be offered it? So generally in most states, it's 3 months of being on the employer group plan. And I say most states because, again, I have lived in Texas and therefore my world revolves around Texas when my brain works. So
what about California?
I have a chart for that.
Okay.
I can send you a chart for that.
Yeah, let's do that and link it in the show notes.
Yes, for sure. And the situation there becomes, have you been on the plan long enough? So Texas, generally, it's 30 more days than you would have been for COBRA. So a little bit longer duration on the plan. And then to be on the plan before eligibility for it being offered. And then once you're terminated, the biggest difference is COBRA in most situations is continuation for up to 18 months. Texas state continuation is continuation up to 9 months. Historically, in the olden days, it was continuation up to 6 months. So that has creeped over in duration a little bit longer. There's also a super weird caveat that if you've been on a large employer plan and your COBRA continuation ended, if you had the right kind of employer plan, fully insured, then you could also get Texas state continuation after your COBRA ended to extend your COBRA too. So there are situations where you can tack not 9 months, but 6 months of Texas state continuation on the back of your 18 months of COBRA. Employers really hate that for multiple reasons.
What if you're a tiny group, say 10, but you're on some kind of level funded platform, then does nothing apply?
Correct. You're a tiny group, 10 employees, you're on a level funded platform. So again, fully insured is going to be your ACA regulated 1 to 50 employer size plans in the state of Texas that are on some kind of non-experience based or modified community adjusted rating. So Blue Cross fully insured plans, United, Baylor Scott and White, one of the main players will have those plans that are fully insured. All of those same players have some kind of level funded plan, and then lots of, independent TPAs also have some kind of level funded plan. So it's 3 times more level funded plan options for an employer than there are fully insured plans as a small employer. And none of those situations when you're under 20 total employees should you be offering state continuation, because there's more gotchas and problems than rewards for doing so.
Yeah. And then so the gotcha, so offering it when we shouldn't, not offering it when we should, 2 big mistakes. What are the other mistakes that employers make with state continuation?
I mean, really the biggest mistake we generally see made is not offering state continuation when you should. So you should have offered because you had the plan that met the old school traditional, everybody used to be fully insured. So if you're under 20, you should offer state continuation. That was the way before the market has shifted, and now more than 30% are doing level funded plans. But 5 years, 10 years ago, everybody should have been doing state continuation. So you don't offer it to the employee. And the employee doesn't get coverage offer, so they file a complaint with the state, and then you get fined for not offering the coverage you should have. It is not as substantial as the COBRA rules and penalties. So the COBRA rules and penalties are that $100 a day per incident that just racks up for not doing it right. They're not that bad, but you still don't want to have to go through that process. And then the other problem you really run into is disgruntled ex-employees suing you and going through that time and hassle, because that's way more of a drain than any kind of, governmental body's penalty assessment.
And then I assume it's some kind of notification process, much like other offboarding things.
It is. There is not really COBRA gives you a model letter.
Right.
Most of your state continuation offerings don't give you a model letter.
Okay.
Platforms like Mineral or Xywave or some of those other HR 360s have small continuation letters you can send out.
Okay.
Most, again, if we're talking old school days, Blue Cross Blue Shield had a state continuation form that you just downloaded and sent, because you're offering a carrier's coverage, and dental and vision aren't part of mini COBRA in Texas. Therefore, you just sent the carrier form.
Mm-hmm.
And that was enough.
Okay.
And it is, again, same as COBRA rules. Generally, they want you to put that in regular mail to an employer. Now, some employers would go ahead and give that to them in the exit or offboarding process, and then follow up to, cover their butts and mail it out after the fact too, just so that's done. So employers can self-administer state continuation. Employers can self-administer COBRA and send all the communications themselves. Most employers, by the time they have to fill out the letter and do that and realize it took them, an hour and a half to research and do and fill in something right that they don't do, day in, day out, they outsource it to some kind of COBRA, or most of the COBRA administrators also offer a state continuation service that's going to run them, under $1 per employee per month to do that. And they're like, well, one time a year saves me the pain and hassle of doing this. So labor costs are way cheaper to outsource it. And then when you outsource it, the penalties, most of the vendors will absorb any penalty compliance issues for you too. So it's a nice both time and labor outsourcing as well as a compliance whoopsies.
And then what about those kind of administrative steps that are involved? Is there, just like COBRA, is there a certain time period? Do you have to mail it to their address on file? Are there any rules there around it?
It's best to just follow COBRA rules.
Okay.
So if you follow the COBRA rules, you're going to meet all the state continuation rules.
Gotcha. And then flipping the script to more the employee experience, what do they often misunderstand about their rights, the timelines, the costs? Is it like COBRA where they're like, oh my goodness, it's so expensive, and they don't realize their employer's been subsidizing them?
The employee sees it as absolutely no different than COBRA. So it's the exact same experience. It is the exact same rules. The employee is now picking up 100% of the costs. Smaller employers, there's a wide variety of how much the employer was covering anyway. There's been a trend for the smaller employers to just cover the bare minimum of 50% of a low-cost plan in the last few years. So it's not as big a shock as some of the large employers. But then you also have the situation where a lot of small employers are picking up the vast majority of the cost, because it's such an intimate workforce that they're trying to do right by their people and not have to have them pay, and the rising increased insurance costs. They're investing in their folks through insurance premiums more than they are wages. And so it is a huge shock. But what really, really happens most of the time is it just doesn't get offered. So the employee experiences, they don't know, or they don't have an option. And they just go straight to either no coverage or the individual marketplace. Because again, it's a loss of employment is a qualifying event to get into one of the ACA marketplace plans mid-year.
Yeah. So if somebody is severed employment, they didn't commit gross misconduct, and their employer doesn't offer it to them, what should they do?
I mean, really, the most cohesive, best option is to find something else. And I'll say that even with COBRA. So if you're choosing state continuation or you're choosing COBRA, you're generally going through the decision tree of, I have something that I've either paid a lot in already through your calendar year deductible, because you have either an acute or chronic condition that's caused you to spend in, and you want to not lose what you've paid into a deductible from said conditions. And so you want to continue your coverage through the rest of that deductible period, most deductible periods being calendar year, and then figure something out in open enrollment. If those two things don't apply, either an ongoing chronic condition or you spend in towards your deductible, where you're able to, go through and find coverage outside of the COBRA coverage, it's generally better for you, financially stable, ripping the Band-Aid and getting into the other world outside of employer coverage. And most coverage outside of employer coverage, employees will see as a bit of a downgrade, either in scope of provider access or, copays, coverage. It'll be a little bit different. But a lot of employees at that point will Band-Aid, 3 months, 2 months, 6 months, 10 months on some kind of either short-term coverage that's super cheap because it doesn't cover a bunch of stuff, some kind of non-insurance health plan that's super cheap because it doesn't cover a bunch of stuff, or they'll look at one of the ACA plans and see if they qualify for some kind of subsidy, and then all of a sudden that is much cheaper than the state continuation and or COBRA offering for them. And so, money covers a multitude of sins when it comes to the difference in coverage levels. And if you keep your money in your pocket, then sometimes it's better than robust coverage for most folks. And subsidized coverage has been that for the last 3-4 years, especially up until this year when we've had that cliff of expanded subsidies now coming off the books. But most people, when they're experiencing this, also experience some kind of income reduction. And most people's income reduction, if they don't know where they're going next for a job or don't have some kind of outside help, are going to have some kind of ability potentially to qualify for a subsidy, I should probably look at the ACA marketplace, see what kind of, if I qualify, are there subsidies? And if that subsidies puts the cost lower, am I in a much better place, even if the coverage is, a quote unquote lesser option?
Very helpful, very helpful. Last question. What is one thing you want every employer listening to walk away remembering?
I've been thinking back to the just simply do it right from the beginning. Outsource it to a COBRA administrator and know whether or not, do your count right. I mean, one of the misnomers is, are you over under 20 employees? A lot of employers look and say, we've got 18 people on our health plan, so we're not COBRA eligible. It's not the people on your health plan, it's your total employee count. So that's one of the really big problems. So a lot of employers don't even think they're, subject to COBRA because they've got, 6 employees, 8 employees, 19 employees on their health plan. And they're not counting, people waiving coverage or their employees that are, what percentage of your part-timers equals a full employee to make that count. So there are employers that don't offer COBRA that, that's not a state continuation conversation, but they're not doing the thing that's the most expensive problem. And then for their smaller employers, not understanding, am I on a fully insured product that is subject to state continuation rules, or am I on some kind of self-funded platform that's considered ERISA rules? Like, which one of those am I under? And that becomes the other issue. Like, know the parameters, don't not do what you should, and don't overdo things. Some employers will choose to offer state continuation because they flip back and forth between fully insured and level funded health plan products, which is very common. And they will choose to just kind of have a continuity of process. That continuity of process generally works out okay until it doesn't. And when it doesn't, because the level funded plan you're on stop loss carrier says we're not picking up that $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $100,000 claim, you offered it, you're technically the plan sponsor. Like, the plan covered it because you enrolled them and told them it was eligible, but the stop loss vendor in the background says no. And so that's your problem. And so that becomes the, oh, shnikes moment. We've got a problem here. So don't do more than you should, and don't underdo what you should.
Sounds good. Thank you for your time. Thanks for making a kind of complicated thing not so complicated and making sure everybody understands.
Awesome. Thanks.
That was Bret Brummitt with Generous Benefits. Here's the bottom line for employers. State continuation coverage is not optional. It carries strict rules, clear timelines, and meaningful consequences if you miss the mark. Understanding which rules apply to you, communicating clearly with employees, and putting a repeatable process in place will save time, prevent compliance issues, and reduce stress during moments of transition for your workforce. If today's conversation made you realize there's room to tighten up your process, that's a great next step. Clarity here protects everyone. Thanks for listening to the Generous Benefits Podcast.